Hi, and welcome to the Bouncing Back Podcast, Professionals Thriving with Chronic Illness. I'm Melissa McCurley, your host, and someone navigating life and business with the challenges of autoimmune disease. This podcast is about resilience, inspiration, and actionable strategies to help you thrive, no matter where you are in your health journey. In each episode, we'll share stories and insights from professionals who've bounced back stronger. Let's redefine what it means to live and thrive with chronic illness. Now, let's dive in. Hello, my name is Melissa McCurley, and I'm your host for today's podcast. For over 20 years, I've been a professional in the film and TV industry, as well as a realtor and real estate investor. In 2020, I had a major life reset from autoimmune disease that had me stepping back from everything. 2024 was my first year back full-time in real estate, and now I'm passionate about sharing stories of success and strategies for creating your success while living with chronic illness, because it is possible. And I'm super excited to share with you our guest today, Wade Simmons. He has the most interesting background. He's a funeral service professional for over 15 years with experience in the industry. He's also a filmmaker, currently working on a web series called Love Always Wins. I love that. Hey. Wade is passionate about caretaking others during one of life's inevitable but most difficult transitions. And I can't wait to hear his insights and his personal story. So Wade, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm super excited to be here. I love your energy too, by the way.
Thanks. Back at you. So tell us a little bit. The first question we just got to get into is tell us about what it means exactly to be a funeral service professional, and how did you get into that?
So to be a funeral service professional, it's an honor, it's a privilege, and it's really a career of service. And it was always something I wanted to do from childhood on up. But how I got into it was when I was in, really starting back elementary school, I always knew what I wanted to do. And I remember, I used to talk about it so much. There was a young man named Terrence Matthews on the west side of Chicago. He's like, what, you going to be a funeral director or something? And I'm like, we were in 8th grade. And I'm like, yes, that's what I'm going to do. And so I pursued it. And in high school, my teacher, Miss Anderson, she called Spencer Leak Jr. Here in Chicago. He owns one of the funeral homes in Chicago. And he just said, just show up in a gold tie, white shirt and black suit. And I started coming ever since. So I ended up working for them for 13 years.
Wow. That's amazing. And then you got a degree in it, right? There's a course of study. I've listened to a couple of your other interviews.
Yeah. So I went to mortuary college. I went to Worsham College, and I thank God that I went. I met a lot of cool people, but it was rough. Some people might pass it with ease, but because when you go to school to be a mortician, you're literally going to school to be a surgeon, kind of a lawyer, a counselor, a minister, so an accountant. And so that, in that field, you wear many different hats. An artist, because a lot of times you might have to do restorative arts, a chemist, got to do a little bit of chemistry with embalming. So it's one of those careers where it's so many different things that you can do. And even with counseling, because a lot of times you never know who you're going to talk to, because everybody grieves differently. Every loss is different. So it's an honor and a privilege to serve in that field. But I'm telling you, to go to school for it, for me, it was rough, because it took me quite a while to pass the test. So it was,
It sounds like a lot. Real estate, I'm a realtor, and I think our pass rate's 20% for the state exam. And, a lot of times too, you find yourself counseling people, because a lot of times when do people sell a house? Divorce, death, right? You got a family asset. Sometimes it's the joy of bringing, children into life. Sometimes it's downsizing. So we get a little of that too, but not so much of the moments, the visceralness of the passing. That's amazing. You must have just a real heart of service.
Yeah, I was, and honestly, at one point, I was really discouraged, because that's why I said my life kind of went full circle, because I always said as a child, right, that I would be a funeral director and a filmmaker. And God blessed me to actually pursue both my passions, because I ended up going to film school right after mortuary school, because I was at one point, I didn't know if I was going to pass the exit exam. So I'm like, you know what? This don't work out. Maybe I'll find me another career. And right when I enrolled in film school, I ended up passing the funeral director part of the test. And then right after I graduated film school, I went back and passed the embalming side.
So then you have two courses of study, 2 degrees. You've got the mortuary and the filmmaking.
Yeah.
Wow, that's I thought I was kind of a blazing trails because I was like an actor and a realtor, but man, you're So let's talk about storytelling for a minute. I'm a storyteller, obviously actor, you're a storyteller, a filmmaker, and I'm sure I would think with funeral services, there's some storytelling you do in framing, right? That transition in life. How does that come together for you?
It actually comes together really well because I remember and I was just telling my uncle this the other day, but when I was in mortuary school, I started writing the Love Always Wins script then because we had this one science, he was the anatomy teacher. And, we had one teacher like Ben Smith. He was pretty cool and lively. He held your attention pretty well. But we had one teacher, Mr. Kowalski. He was like an older mortician that had been in the business a while. And he taught anatomy. And it was just so
you just pray to stay awake through that class.
Yeah, so while he was teaching, I would be back in the back of the class sitting next to my friend Jamie. And I just started writing my script, and like I said, I probably should have been paying attention. But
hey, you got there.
It happens, but what I do notice about like you said, when you're dealing with a funeral, right? You are telling somebody's story because life has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And so, to me, that just really inspires me as a filmmaker because, I really love stories, about people's life. That's why, I really want to get more into being a documentarian. I found more joy in making documentaries because I love, meeting new people and, hearing them tell their story because, everybody's life is kind of, has something interested in it. You just have to look for it. That's all.
For sure. I've done some volunteer work in retirement homes and even through high school coming up, and some of the stories, and people are passing with those stories, not being passed on. World War II, Vietnam, just things like that are so far from our lives today that saving those stories. And then, there's always wisdom in every story, right? Being able to bring that into life, I think, is super important. Well, let me ask you, you've had your own health journey, correct, as well?
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about that, what that looked like for you? And
so I ended up developing a condition called Spasmodic Dysphonia. For those who don't know what it is, it's like a rare vocal disorder where if you get stressed or irritated, my voice, it was strained and I kind of sound like Palpatine from Star Wars. I'm not Darth Sidious. I'm telling you, I'm just, the same guy, just stressed. But it's basically when I speak, right? If I'm stressed or anxious, my voice changes and it sound like an old man kind of. And at first, a lot of people was getting concerned. They're like, man, why you kind of sound like that? And, I was kind of nervous and I didn't know what it was. So I actually started doing my own research and I went to the doctor. And they checked me. Thank God it wasn't throat cancer, nothing like that. So then I went back to the doctor and they sent me to a specialist and it was labeled as spasmodic dysphonia. So what happened was I was talking to this to the voice therapist because they wanted me to get Botox injections, and I'm like, I kind of more so would like to take natural routes.
Yeah, for sure. Certainly start there, right?
Yeah. And the voice therapist was like, well, you've been in the funeral business for a while. Why don't you try just maybe focus on filmmaking a little more? And then I also did a little pro wrestling training too for 2 years. So she's like, just focus on that. But the funny thing is when I left working full time at the funeral home, it's my voice came back. And so it's so basically it was cause there's no known cure for spasmodic dysphonia as of yet. But I've noticed if I manage my stress, it's not as bad.
Gotcha. So then are you part-time now? You've created more space for the filmmaking?
So basically I work for different funerals because I work for my own removal service now. So I do removals, which are what they call now transfers, where if somebody loved one passes, a funeral home would contact me and my crew and we would go to the place where the decedent is and make the removal.
Gotcha. Yeah, I remember my grandmother passed. We had, she was lucky enough to be able to pass in her own home, which was a blessing. But okay. So you're finding this balance then. Isn't it amazing how the body, and I know you're a person of faith, so, we believe that there's something beyond, the body's a vessel for, direction. But the body will course correct us when we don't do it ourselves.
Absolutely. And, you said a mouthful there because it was because at one point in time, I had to pinpoint where the stress was coming from. And I thought about it, I spent years trying to pass that test. And then I was working at the funeral home, which the funeral home I work for is a very big firm, and and they've really helped the community a lot. But I think that even with that though, like no matter what you do, even if it's something you love, you have to create a balance, And I remember being at a funeral director conference, and I remember one of the funeral directors saying like, there is no such thing as a balanced life, but I believe that you have to create the balance because it's not going to just create itself. But if you don't, then sometimes things will start happening, and then we have to slow down. So you have to take care of this body that God gave you because, just like we service families and things of that, like stress really do kill people. So, you don't want to go early if we don't have to,
Yeah. And, you touched on something important there, too, is that it's hard when you love what you do. I struggle with that, too. Being realtors, people want us to be available all the time, right? We show houses on the weekend. We do all the business stuff during the week. It's people, when do people want to talk about houses? Between 6 and 10 at night, and it's hard. When you love what you do and you want to be and you're of service and to find that balance. But yeah, your body will course correct. And so better to get ahead of it, right?
Yeah. And so last year was really mind blowing because I left the funeral home full time in 2023, but I wasn't gone long because I ended up going back to work for them a little bit last year, but I also kind of did a little work for myself. But I'm loving it. It's been some ups and downs because again, like when you start in a company and, you're trying to, balance life and, things come up. So it's like, it's just always a matter of just trying to figure it out, but I do love like what I do. And I like doing the removals a lot more because like for 13 years, I worked at the funeral home pretty much being there, what they call in-house on site. But now since I've been doing removals, I'm getting out more, going to, help families in their time of need and stuff. So to me, I think I kind of like that side of it better. But I'm also wanting to move more into funeral service education because I'm not going to lie, like, a lot of people like the funeral business, but to me, I like to be I love it, but I also want to be well-rounded and I'm more about education. And so I want to move more into funeral service education because I know for me, I had a bit of a rough time in school, and to be honest with you, it's not a hard field, but it's just like, of course, the way that our education system is made up, sometimes you have to go through all the rigorous courses and things of that nature. But I think that if I was a teacher, I think I could have simplified it a little bit,
I see that in a lot of professions that people, they do the craft for many years, somewhere usually between 10 and 20 years. And then they start to teach others. And then sometimes they even move into that becomes a full time of teaching or coaching. It's a way to pass down the knowledge. Like you said, you want to take all the struggles you had coming up and do your best to sidestep that, right? For new people coming in. I think that's a real natural, arc in business. I've seen that a lot. So I think that makes good sense.
Yeah. Well, funerals.
Go ahead.
Oh, the funerals, because funerals are education. I think that is good because like not a lot of people and like this is surprising, even in the age of information, right? Like a lot of times when someone loses a loved one, like I get calls from people and they'll say like, we don't really know what to do. Yeah. And so a lot of times I just try to, point people in the right direction. But one thing that I never do as a worker, I don't really refer people to anybody. I'm being honest. I just tell people to, wherever you choose to go, watch out for this, watch out for that. Mm-hmm. Give yourself options because I just believe in letting people explore their options. And I don't know, like me, I just, I love everybody in the business and everything, but I believe that people should go where they're comfortable with. Like even with me being in the business, like I've had family members who passed away. And my aunt told me one time, she like, I was waiting on you to call, but like I didn't because I don't try to like, I am an educator before a salesman, Yeah. I'm just being real, not everybody gets that, but I like for people to like exercise their choice and, to just go with what they're comfortable with because I don't ever want to like, force my services on anybody.
I mean, you're so right. I think that's the difference. I feel like I'm the same way in my business. I think that's the difference between somebody who's a service first person versus a sales first person. Mm-hmm. And I don't even want to put a judgment on and say one's better or another. But when you're a service first person, I think you do that. You're thinking about what's the best thing for this person. You're always thinking about, hey, let me direct you some good information. But then you make the call and reach back if you have questions. If I'm the right person, great. If I'm not the right person, fine. And then I think other people approach business from the sales first, where, they're always trying to get those sales. I think they both probably have pros and cons. But I'm with you. I mean, I get what you're saying. That's
yeah, but I don't knock anybody for being a salesman either, because
right.
I mean, people are in business to make money, so I understand that. But as for me, like I don't, no judgment on that end. But me personally, like I just want people to be comfortable with the choice that they made, because I mean, you know, because even in the funeral business, like I just, you know, think that people should do what they feel is better for them. But I always tell people, explore your options, because you never know what's out there if you don't explore it, you know. So I think that's really key.
That's it for sure. So what are your goals that upcoming? You created some space now to have more room in your life for the filmmaking. Kind of what are you working on now? Where are you headed with that? What are your goals for it?
Actually, I'm just trying to, like, you know, get my series out a little more. But actually, I'm working on, like I said, becoming more of a documentarian. But I also have been applying for like a role with SAG, the Screen Actors Guild, like to maybe do a little work for them, because I would like that experience, like whether I get it or not. But I know that there's a lot kind of going on in that industry and stuff like that. So I don't mind joining the fight to save the industry, to be honest with you.
I'm a member of SAG, so, you know, I know I'm going to turn this into a whole acting SAG union podcast, but we can take that offline. Any questions you have or contacts. I've been a union member since, I think, 2013. Yeah, there's a lot of opportunity.
Yeah, because I used to get like so irritated when I would see people post things online, like tell the actors to get a real job. And I'll be saying to myself, like, whether a lot of people notice or not, acting is a real job. I mean, because art is a big part of everything we do, from real estate to architecture, you know, to even being a mortician, restorative art. So like art is a very big part of my life. So like, to me, I think that people don't understand that, yes, you know, it may seem like acting and stuff is a luxury job, but actors actually endure a lot.
The only people who would ever say that have never been actors.
Yeah.
If people say the same thing about teachers, though, teaching's a part-time job. Is it really? Are you married to a teacher? Have you been a teacher? You know, people like to talk about what they don't understand.
Yeah, and that's my thing, that being a filmmaker is a real job. I mean, I have friends that do it full time. Like me, I didn't do it full time because I always said, you know, I kind of like to keep my options open. Like, I love it, but I also know that, to me, like, I don't want to spend all my time just doing one thing. I kind of, because I want to keep my love for it. And sometimes, like you said, the thing that you love, if you don't take breaks and stuff from it, then sometimes you can, like, you know what, I don't want to do this no more.
Yeah, that's really wise. You know, you can do something too. And also, I think it keeps you more well-rounded.
Yeah.
You know, I have some friends that are actors who, you know, through a combination of talent, obviously, and opportunity, luck, you know, all those things, were able to step right into some real full time. And that's great. But they have to consciously go create life experiences to be able to incorporate in the work, because they don't have them, you know, in a way that somebody who's been in an industry, you know, and the emotions of that. I can't imagine. Can you share with us, what's a story that you've had? Obviously, don't use names, but working with a family in the passing of a loved one that really stood out to you. Maybe it was a triumph over adversity, or just something, a profoundness. What? I'm sure you have a lot, but can you think of one or two you could share?
Well,
I'll
tell you one time. I'll never forget this. It was a family that they were. I'll never forget this. It was one day where I think, like, the guy, he was an African guy, and he was really aggressive. And I remember that it was one particular day where, like, I was supposed to do, I don't know if it was a pro wrestling show or something I had, like, the next day, but I had to be somewhere. And, you know, they were kind of like, you know, really demanding. And I get it, and I always try to empathize with people. But for this particular day, I wasn't really feeling the best. And I remember this guy, he was like really demanding. And so I got to talking to him, and I remember I had asked him, because they needed help with their video presentation, I think it was. And I was handling like the video and stuff of that nature. So it might not have been working properly. So I helped him. And then he was like, are you going to be here tomorrow? And I was like, I don't think so. Like, I got another engagement tomorrow. And then I had asked him, like, because I was really kind of getting a little agitated too, because I had a lot going on my end too. But then I asked him, I said, well, how are you related to the deceased? He said, this is my wife. And he was a young guy. And he told me that he just went to work one morning, and he came home and he found his wife laying on the floor with his son. And, you know, I think I ended up going to work the next day. But yeah, it's just like, you know, that was kind of like, that kind of broke my heart a little bit. You know, I mean, I know everybody got to go, but I always say, like, you know, at least God willing live to like 80 or 90 or something, like, you know, but when a person goes young like that, like
Yeah.
that's kind of a heartbreak. Even older, it hurts too. But I mean, it's a little more comforting when the person lived a full life.
Right. Then, yeah, for sure. And, I think that touches on, you never know what somebody's going through. So
Hmm.
often in life, we're both in businesses where we deal with people under some level of stress, right? And even with that, you never know what the backstory is. You never know what somebody's going through. So yeah, when people are short with me on the phone or this and that, I try not to react to that and kind of get deep into
Yeah,
what's going on with them or what. And then sometimes, you hear stories where you're just like, I can't even imagine how I'd get through the day,
yeah, and
let alone
yes,
go back to work and put a smile on my face and function. I mean, yeah, for sure. It puts
yeah.
things in perspective.
Being in that business definitely gives you a very different perspective on life because you see so many things. Like I done seen so much stuff. It's like good, bad, ugly. But I mean, but it's one of those things that I notice is like that's why I always said like I always if I'm going to be in a funeral business, like I've always said, I never want to do nothing just to make money off of sadness. Like I want to also do something that makes people happy, that makes people smile, and so that's one of the things that I love about film because it kind of allows me that freedom. Because in the funeral business, of course, you want the family to be satisfied and things of that nature. But the reality is, I don't care how great of a job you do, somebody would rather not have had to go through that process. I
Right.
think they would rather choose to have their loved one. So, and I mean, we've all been there before. Like my grandfather just passed away in January. On January 2nd, he was 86 years, and he was still working and everything.
Wow. Full
Yeah,
life.
they was trying to get him to retire, but he like, nah, not.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I thank God for 86 years. So like I said, it hurts a little bit, but it was a little more comforting because he did live his life.
Yeah. Well, that's wonderful. You got to have him so long into your life. That's a big
Yeah,
blessing. There's
yeah,
a quote, and I forget who said it. But they said that people will forget what you do, but they'll never forget the way you make them feel.
that's true.
And I think that's true. Obviously in the funeral services and also in film. So let me
Yeah.
ask you. We've got a couple more minutes left. What's your definition of success right now?
So
How?
my definition of success is a journey, not a destination.
Ah,
And the reason why I say that is that, and I borrowed that quote from my friend John. He also trained with me back in pro wrestling, but I like it because a lot of times when you get to the pinnacle you plan to reach, sometimes you'll learn that it's always more to life. And I think that people have to understand that, like, success comes with wins and losses. And so, like, you may win today, lose tomorrow, win today, lose tomorrow. So I think it's just one of those things to know that, like, you're always growing and learning. But I just think that, like, to me, success is just, I look at it as a journey, not a destination. Because every day is a different day. So it's kind of like filmmaking, right? Like, every day is its own episode. So I learned that if I look at life like that, then, you won't get as discouraged.
I love that. I 100% agree. I think sometimes when we do too much planning, and you have to have a certain amount of planning if you're running a business, but we can overdo. You don't leave room for those happy accidents. And
Yeah.
sometimes those happy accidents are the things that take us in directions where, we really find the gold of life and we have those moments.
Yeah.
And I love that. Well, let me ask you, where can people find you? I'm so excited about your filmmaking, but if I know you're getting into the documentary stuff, but like today, where could they find you? Where could they see your work?
So you can find my work on Vimeo. I love Vimeo, by the way, but I'm
Okay.
Wade Filmmaker 777 on Vimeo. And you can check my work out there. I got quite a bit of stuff there. And also you can check out my documentary I did on Rago Brothers Funeral Home. He was a teacher that he let me do my documentary on him. So that was pretty cool. That's
Where
like
do we
one of
find
my
that? Is that
favorite.
Vimeo?
Yep, that's one of my favorite ones. So that's why I said, like, I love making narrative films, but I'm moving more into, like, towards making documentaries because I love it. Like it's a lot of fun. I'm
It's
also
the
in the
service
process.
industry of filmmaking. I'm not
Yeah,
surprised. It's the
I'm
service
I'm
first.
also I'm also in the process of making a documentary on my experience in training for professional wrestling too.
Okay.
It was a pretty cool experience, and I met some pretty cool people. So I'm slowly working on that. Like that's more of a passion project. So I'm taking my time with it.
Gotcha. Well, we look forward to I can't wait to see I watched a couple of your pieces on Vimeo, but I can't wait to see more and follow that. And then we'll link it in the show notes too, so that people can follow. Awesome. Any final words?
Yeah, I was just telling the people, look, enjoy enjoy the journey. Don't worry about the destination. Just enjoy the journey. Every day is different, and no matter what situation you're in, you can always overcome it. Just trust God, be patient, and just keep loving your heart for people, whether we agree or disagree, but we got to love one another.
I love that. Love that. Well, thank you so much, Wade. I appreciate your time. If you enjoyed today's episode, please don't forget to subscribe, leave us a review. And if you know someone who would benefit from these stories of success, please share this with them. Check out Wade's web series on Vimeo and his socials to follow his journey and his work. Thanks for tuning in to the Bouncing Back podcast. We'll be back in 2 weeks with more inspiring stories of success. So until then, keep bouncing back. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of the Bouncing Back podcast, Professionals Thriving with Chronic Illness. I hope you found inspiration and actionable takeaways to support you on your journey. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who might need a little encouragement today. Remember, thriving with chronic illness is possible. You are stronger than you think. Until next time, take care and keep bouncing